This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Well, hey everybody. Thanks for joining us again here on Josh Has Autism. As always, we appreciate you being here. You mean so much to us, and so we're glad to be doing this with you one more time. I am so excited about today's podcast because I have some very special guests, and we'll just get right to it because I can't wait to hear everything they have to say. The folks that are joining us here today, they own Mr. Cleans, is a professional cleaning service. It's a family-owned business since 1999. So, Mike and Shawnee Wilson, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad that you agreed to put up with my torment for a podcast today. I am so appreciative. First of all, let me just ask you: this is a family-owned business, like I just said, since 1999. So you've been doing something right for a very long time.
Well, we're tenacious. We've had lots of ups and downs, but we definitely you just kind of keep rolling, and that's what we've been doing. We made a lot of changes over the years.
One of the changes that you've made that I know of is that a great many of your employees at this point are on the autism spectrum.
That is correct. We started about 3 years ago now with an idea that I had, and Mike ran with it, and it's been phenomenal, and it has actually been life-changing.
Kind of backing up from that, what led to the idea, our youngest son, is Colin, who is 23, he'll be 24 in April, he's on the autistic spectrum.
We had to stop doing the constant moving with the corporate stuff, and so we jumped off the crazy train and started our own thing, and what we knew was cleaning.
Now, did you did that because of Colin?
That was what made us stop the moving around. I used to manage restaurants, and so Shawnee and I averaged about a year and a half per place we stayed. We moved a lot, not quite as much as military, but pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And with Colin being diagnosed, we thought it might be best if we sunk down some roots where we were.
And how old was he when he was diagnosed?
3.5. We were kind of late because he was the baby of 4, and so we sort of missed some of the stuff. But his constant screaming and non-verbalizations until he was 5 made it pretty. I mean, at 3.5, we had to accept something was going on.
Right. Yes, I experienced that. Well, we call it screeching. That Josh did when he was a little tiny guy with a whole bunch of screeching. But he was my first, so I didn't know any different.
Yeah, I think the first or the last could be kind of, I don't know. I think once you're having children and you have more than 1 or 2,
mm-hmm.
They kind of get lost. And we've had 4. We have 4 children. So Colin is the baby of 4.
Uh-huh. And
we just sort of figured that his older siblings were completing his sentences like they did for his middle sister, I guess, the youngest daughter, and they finished her sentences for her, and then whenever she started talking at 2, it was complete sentences with things like aggravated. So we just weren't worried.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we kind of expected that he would go from nothing to a verbal explosion, and then when the verbal explosion never happened, and then it kept on not happening, then, we pursued getting him diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that he was a big part and parcel of why we had the courage to stop pursuing corporate career. And I'm not sure if Mike wants to tell why he was not pursuing a corporate career.
Well, in addition to the thing with the corporate career, I was general manager. I opened a very busy restaurant which at the time was like one of the hottest concepts going. What I didn't realize when I took the job with this concept was they hired expensive general managers to open the restaurants, experienced ones, and then once the restaurant was opened, they went ahead and replaced you with somebody not so experienced and not so expensive. So I ran into that, found myself unemployed. You start looking for work when you become unemployed, and all of a sudden there's a big question mark hanging over your head. And Shawnee and I had wanted to have our own business since we were in our teens, but had always been afraid to do it. Well, all the offers we got required us to move to places we didn't want to go. We're at about 80% of what I was making before, and some of them were even like half, and they were just really insulting. And, sometimes, I don't know about you, but for me, the biggest thing that overcomes my fear is anger, and they made me really mad, and we had the guts to do it.
Good for you. Good for you. Yes, anger gets an awful lot accomplished, doesn't it?
It did in our case, because we decided we weren't afraid anymore to try what we had in our minds. And so I feel like we were really blessed because we did something, and it's 20 years later, we're still doing it. And it was really beneficial to not move for Colin to get in the schools that he was in, that may help us make such a difference, because like we said, he was nonverbal until he was 5.
To kind of give you an idea about Colin, when, since we had 4 children, he was number 4, and Shawnee puts it very, very well when she says, we knew we weren't going to live forever. Mm-hmm. So when he was diagnosed, and when we worked with different administrators and such on his behalf, we asked him, okay, well, what can we do to help him learn to drive, manage a bank account, have an apartment? And they looked at us like we were speaking Chinese. Right. They were like, no, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, you don't understand. When Colin he's more autistic than your average autistic child. When he gets to be too much for you, you can institutionalize him. Well, you can imagine that was not an answer we were willing to accept.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, absolutely. I experienced a similar conversation.
It's very demoralizing.
It is. It is, and it's scary.
Yes.
And it continues to be scary, but I understand what you're saying completely. Some anger in that takes over too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did for me. I started searching out, because whenever I first started looking for resources and stuff, almost everything was telling me what could not be done. Mm-hmm. There were very few resources that were saying what could be done, and that actually angered me too, because I don't know where I get my positive mental attitude from. I think it's from my dad in sales, but I just couldn't accept that this was the only option. And Temple Grandin, and I read a lot of her stuff, and that helped me work out a plan. And Michael was crazy enough to go along with me, and so we tortured ourselves for quite a few years to get through the, whatever you call it, the screeching phase, because we had lots of screeching. Mm-hmm. We didn't do it with other people, but in order to get Colin to where he is, we took little baby screechy steps every step of the way. Mm-hmm. And now he drives.
Yep.
He drives across 3 states. He trains. Mm-hmm. He's in a pretty intensive management training thing right now, and he's extremely proud, because after we took the entire family crew to the awards dinner for the governor's award that we got this year for hiring people with disabilities. And I don't think that I've ever seen Colin so proud and so energized as at that award ceremony that we won Employer of the Year, other than when the guy asked him, one of the first guys that worked for us on the spectrum said, do you think I could do what Colin's doing? And for the first time, he felt inspired. I'd never seen him catch fire to anything. I mean, digital, anything. Mm-hmm. And then when that guy said that, it changed his entire outlook about what he was about to do.
Right. So maybe for the first time, he really felt like he could accomplish something, that he was doing something that he was good at and something that mattered.
Yeah. And, and I looked over at him. I was like, okay, so how would it be for you when you get to be my age, an autistic person running a company that hires almost exclusively autistic people to work? And somehow that just kind of clicked in him, in a way I would have never, I hoped, when you have your kids, I keep saying, but when you have your kids, you always hope for them that somehow they'll find their passion, something that they're going to be more than just getting by doing, that they want to excel at. And when you see it happen for one of your kids, it really is a wonderful thing.
And it makes it even more of a wonderful thing when they're little boys and the doctors are saying that they're not going to be able to drive.
Yes. It's very satisfying to look back at the naysayers and snicker and say, well, I guess you were wrong.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is about that specifically is because, often the downside of autism is what's focused on. But with you, the aspects of autism seem to be embraced and appreciated.
They are.
Yeah, and so, not everybody does that, and certainly not every business owner does that. So how is it that you have brought your company that you've built over the years and the folks that are on the autism spectrum together? How did that come about? Other than Colin, which stands to reason that he was a motivator from the beginning.
Yeah, him and his brother were the motivators for behind us doing it. But one of the things, how do you, frustration of 20 years, and he's got more than how many years of experience of managing people do you have?
Since I was 21, so that'd be 31 years.
Okay,
32 years.
So 31 years of managing people with a lot of high turnover. And everybody looks at the negatives with autism because of the difficulties in speaking. Well, what we have found and what we have discovered is that autistic people offer stability. They offer reliability. And while that sounds like the same thing, it isn't. Stability means that they're going to show up. The reliability also is show up, but it's also they actually do what you ask. Yes, it may take you a little bit longer to train them, but not always. And they bring in honesty and trust, and they give us a sense of security. When we send them out, we know that we're going to be sending out honest, dependable, reliable people that are going to do their very best to give our clients the exact thing that we've taught them to do. And so we have a lot of confidence after we train them for a while. When they go, if they don't go with us after a period of time, they're all able to offer things that their peers are not able to do. I had a couple of guys tell me when we first started trying to do some video or recordings of them talking about why they like working for us. And the number one thing that they kept saying was that we made them, that we were laid back because they felt comfortable. They got to be themselves. But the other thing was they didn't want anybody to know about their disability, but that they wanted to be known by the quality of their work. And that was like a resounding, repetitious thing that kept happening with each one of them that we talked to. You don't hear that with most beginning entry-level employees. And so autistic people are offering our company a level up, a higher quality, a better service that we're able to offer our clients. And so their integrity is also something that helps, because if they do something wrong, they tell you. And that gives me the chance as an employer to deal with my client before the client calls me angry. We can already have a solution put together because my employees called me and told me instead of trying to hide it or cover it up. And these are all things that a lot of them, it's mostly instinctive. They don't tend, they have a desire to please, and they don't tend to lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's been gold to me. It's completely changed the way I approach training. Before, training was just, I'm going to do as little as I can get away with, as much as I need to get them out there making a little bit of money for me before they quit and go find the greener grass. With a person on the spectrum, the training may take 4 or 6 times as long, but it's an investment because as they build proficiencies, you can actually build proficiencies layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And you know, one of the issues is once an autistic person is comfortable with a situation, they'd rather not change it. So I work really, really hard to help them be comfortable with us so that it makes it to where it doesn't bother me to take longer to train someone because they're going to be around for a long, long time. I mean, like Shawnee said, turnover and everything I did before, including this, restaurant work, retail, turnover was always extraordinarily high. And as I'm getting into my 50s, there was a shelf life on my ability to pressure wash, my ability to clean windows from a physical point of view. Well, this has enabled us to staff our business with people who are going to consistently be here, who will regularly get better. But not just that. I think a lot of people don't give people on the spectrum enough credit.
The opportunity to prove themselves.
Yeah, because what I've found is that they really can handle a lot more than a lot of people give them a chance to do. And yeah, it may have bumps, but you're going to have bumps with a neurotypical person. You're going to have bumps with someone with ADD. You're going to have bumps with a bipolar person. You're definitely going to have bumps with someone who has poor personal habits, substance abuse problems, and you know, given the pool that there is to pull from, if you have a service business, pulling from the spectrum is a real win from an employer's perspective.
So, because they work hard, they want to learn and to become very proficient and excel in the position. And they're going to stick with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we always say their integrity is, you know, that whole honesty thing is huge for an employer.
Sure.
The dependability, they're going to show up when you ask them to show up. They're going to consistently do the work that you taught them to do over and over and over again, which is very comforting and security blanket for our clients. The quality of their work is going to be the very best they could possibly do.
Mm-hmm.
They always do that. And that's partially because they have a desire to please, and that seems to be running inherent with most of the guys that we work with. And they have a dedication to our clients, all of them. It doesn't matter if they're big or small. Everyone is treated with importance. And that's just been, you know, life-changing. There's a word out there that I can't think of that I want to say because it's just like a shift, a paradigm shift for us as a company.
Yeah.
Because we had high expectations for people on the spectrum, but we didn't have any idea what an impact they were going to make on us and what they were going to bring to the table. And I think they get shortchanged.
So it sounds kind of like by hiring people on the spectrum, it made your life better and easier.
Yes. Yeah, that, without a doubt. I absolutely. It's changed our world.
Isn't that amazing and just wonderful and just such a fantastic thing to hear because, you know, so many times, and let's back up here for a second because there is a part of this that I did not mention, and this is the podcast. Josh has autism, and so something that we should say is that we know one another, and Josh is your employee.
Yes, he is, and we love having him. It was kind of funny because when you and he were speaking at a conference that Shawnee and I were doing a outbreak session with our workshop in, and And then we ran into y'all at a get together the next day, and I started talking to Josh, and he and I just hit it off. Found out that his dad had a pressure washing company at one time, and that he loved pressure washing. And one thing led to another, and a week later, we were carrying him up to Birmingham to train, which I was very impressed that him not knowing us very well, he was ready to jump in and give that a shot. But yeah, Josh has been great.
He is filled up in a way that I've not seen in a very long time since he started working for you.
That makes me happy.
Yeah.
So that's the other part that's been life-changing, because it took our boring, dull cleaning thing, and it's given us an opportunity to open up opportunities for other people on the spectrum, and that has just been more fulfilling than I ever dreamed possible.
Because you're changing lives.
They're changing us too.
Yeah, but it's like, who thinks that when you think of window cleaning, pressure washing, janitorial work, who thinks cool? But this has like brought a cool factor to what we do that we could have never even imagined.
Right.
And seeing them grow and seeing what you're talking about with what goes on with Josh, just like what we saw with Colin, when they were sort of inspiring each other to do things. And that, when he got lit up from that, as a parent who wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen, you prepare as hard as you can to help them to be independent, but to see that there might be possibilities of steps where not just be independent, but be able to possibly provide for himself and others. Right. Being able to recreate that in other people's lives is beyond exciting.
And it's something that parents of these kiddos that are on the spectrum, when they're so young and they're in school and there's so many benefits out there for them, and kind of like safety nets, and then they get out of school, and then what do? And for Josh, he's tried college. And when there's something different about working for you, and I talked to him the other day, I said, we got the information for the college semester, so I need to know, are you comfortable and happy and you want to stay working for Mike and Shawnee? Is that what you want to do, or is there you want to go back to school? He goes, no. He goes, I'm going to stay working. I go, you really like it? He said, I love it, and it's what I want to do.
That's awesome. That makes me really happy.
That makes my heart sing, and makes all these other things that we're doing on the background to get inroads to more jobs and more opportunities. That just gives me that much more energy to go after that, because that makes my heart happy.
Oh, that's wonderful. He says that what the two of you do, and the managers. So Colin is one of the managers that he's speaking of, a trainer. So Colin has helped to train Josh. And what Josh has to say is that he's had some experiences with kind of a meltdown one time when he was at work, and the guys didn't do anything other than allow him to go through what he was going through and encourage him to keep moving forward.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's what we're teaching them when they have them.
And that was one of those things that I was thinking about, kind of rewinding to the very beginning. When Shawnee talked to me about doing this, I wrote a letter to the Autism Society of Alabama. They referred, basically saying, kind of that we were wanting to hire people, but we weren't wanting to hire just tokens, so to speak, or right. mascots. Do you understand what I'm saying when I say that?
Absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm.
We were hiring them to hold down positions where they mattered. They weren't just there for a feel-good. They were there as an employer, and they were expected to contribute. And we weren't going to accept any less than that they contributed. we had realistic expectations for how long and how much they could contribute over time. But now the kind of the promise has been that, hey, as you develop, you have a chance at a career where you are a supervisor or a trainer, ultimately a manager of an area. And it's kind of funny when you get two guys in a truck together who are on the spectrum, or in the case of some of this work that Josh and Colin and Taylor have done, three of them working overnight, staying in hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get two or three guys who are one way or another used to being accommodated, and now they're having to become accommodators because they're working with other people who are used to being accommodated. And you have people who are going into positions of supervising who, maybe have worked by themselves for a year or less, and before that, they were always the one who was being led, and now they're being leaders. And so what you have is you have everybody in a position where more is required of them. Everybody is having to stretch out, and so I'll have people call me and be like, well, this person didn't talk to me the way I wanted to be talked to, or this or that. And I'm like, well, tell me, is everything you're doing now new? Well, yeah. Is it kind of hard for you? Is it uncomfortable? Do you feel like you're stretching as a person? Well, yeah, I'm stretching as a person, but they're talking to me gruff and rough. I said, well, they shouldn't talk to you like that, but they're stressed out too, because just like you're stretching, they're
Mm-hmm.
stretching too. They're doing something new and different and difficult is being required of them, just like it is of you. And what happens is the guys learn how to show each other grace rather than require the other person to be perfect while putting up with their imperfections. They're learning how to put up with the imperfections.
It looks kind of funny sometimes, though.
It is funny. It is hilarious. I mean, and I get tickled every time they do it. But, and they'll have their meltdowns and, I don't like he was this way, he was that way.
Mm-hmm.
And, they wouldn't say it the way I would say it. But still in all, once it's like a light bulb goes off in their head and they realize that their supervisor or their trainer is growing just like they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so they learn how to accommodate each other and give each other grace.
I've seen that light bulb go on with Josh when we're talking about those nights that he's gone up there and stayed with Colin and Taylor, and when he's come home, I ask him how it's gone, and he the same thing that you're getting. I get a little bit of grumbling, and we talk about it, and I say, well, as you're learning the position that you're learning, they are also learning to be managers. So it's new for them. The parts of it that are new might be different for them right now, but still, they're learning just like you're learning. It's the same conversation we had, and I just saw that I kind of, as you put it, that light bulb came on, and he really understood and kind of has a solid appreciation for those guys at this point, because when we've talked about different scenarios, we do talk about the fact that there are sensory issues, and regardless of what position somebody's in, it just so happens that these are three guys on the autism spectrum, but as you put earlier, everybody has their own stuff to overcome. Uh-huh. It doesn't matter, diagnosis or not. And yet, in this case, it's Josh's first experience working with guys that are also on the spectrum, and he sometimes, he might find it humorous because I find it humorous, because when he's telling me that somebody said something in a way, or they didn't listen, and I go, oh, really?
Yeah, surprise.
Right. And of course he gets the humor, and understands.
But the funny part about those trips to Dothan that they went to is Taylor and Colin are both kind of trying to interpret how they're supposed to be an alpha. And so it makes for some interesting things for Josh, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're all having, like Colin knows he's a manager in the sense of that he knows he's been doing this for over 9 years.
Wow.
He's been working in our business for a really long time, so he has lots of experience, and he knows his stuff. But he's learning how to lead while also taking in the information from other people and not always assuming he should go opposite of his own stuff. Because I don't know if Josh is ever like this, but what Colin has most of the time, and what we see with a lot of the guys, is that they generally think they're wrong, but they fight to be the right person. They want to argue their point. And so as they're learning to walk in confidence, so Colin is getting one-on-one coaching with his older sister for creating management attitude and philosophy and grace.
That's
so
fantastic.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it works out to where we're going to do a video class for everybody to be able to be a part of that going forward. So we're guinea pigging Colin, and then we'll do a more polished version on everybody else.
he's your guinea pig.
Yeah. Well, he's our kid, so he has to love us regardless. And he does. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I've seen Josh on the side of being an employer, and he is extremely agreeable, okay? So I'm sure that as a parent, you've seen different sides, but Colin likes to gripe at us about every new thing that we have him do. I mean, work-wise or otherwise.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So
it's a similar experience on your end.
Yes, completely. It's always been that if I needed the yard raked, he would spend hours debating and making excuses and finding reasons not to do it. But if the neighbor's yard needed raked, which is this has actually happened, that next thing I know, he's over raking the neighbor's yard. Working with them while they're out raking, but ours is still a mess. He's over there raking theirs. I'm like, dude.
Sometimes it seems like it's just hard getting started, but once you get started, you're okay. At least that's been my experience.
With Colin, if you do something to change what he has in mind, that's the part that really messes him up more than anything. And even now, we're working with him on it, but it doesn't come natural, and you can see the resistance, but he's learning to go with it.
Well, what's funny, and we obviously had to back up, and this is where his sister's coming in with the whole training. When he was first doing his own route, if someone came up and asked him if we could do their windows, he would tell them no. He wouldn't take a new client. We got all kinds of calls and complaints because this person wouldn't even give him a quote. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry, he's autistic. He did not, that wasn't on the plan. Okay. So he had to go back up and work with his sister, and she made him get a better attitude because she wouldn't take. Well, I mean, we trained. We don't allow that. We didn't know he was doing that until we got a couple of calls, and so we put her back with him. And it took about a month to get him to call her for management training to meet with her. He kept putting it off. Like they're supposed to meet once a week. We're paying her to meet with him, and he's not meeting with her.
Do you think that was because it's his sister, or because he did not understand the necessity for what she was about to teach him?
He just didn't want to add that to his schedule.
Oh, got it. He wanted
her to come and teach him because he credits her with his being able to now sell to clients. Like, he no longer would tell a client no. Mm-hmm. He would accept that bid, and he pays better attention, and he'll go and actually make sales calls, which is something he wouldn't do originally, but she made him do it, and so he did it, and now he's fine with it. He's not going, but I mean, this was a new add-in. Okay,
right.
You're going to go meet with your sister and learn how to behave. He wouldn't even download. I mean, I was paying for the books. He wouldn't download the books off of the internet so that he could read them, that they were going to be going over. Mm-hmm. And it just took about a month. Was it about a month of him getting? Yeah. We made him pay for it because he took so long. So it had to come out of his spending money.
Yeah, I think he deceives himself that he can outweight us and he'll get out of it.
Well, one thing that I know that I see with Josh in scenarios like that is that sometimes it's just the change. Sometimes it's just the addition of something new or the change of what he's already been doing, of a routine, of a regimen, of the way things are done. When that's changed, sometimes that can be a very difficult period of time for him.
Yeah, it is hard, and I find so. One of the things that we try to do, and it's just like they're all growing. I'm Mr. ADD. I pressure wash the world. If somebody calls me and wants the job done, I'll pressure wash it. Yes, 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 yes. Go, 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 go. Figure it out as I go along.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the stretching for me is that in order to help these guys be more comfortable, they need to be able to see down the road a little bit and know what's coming on. So what does that mean? That means I have to get more organized. I have to plan better. I have to change the way I do things. So just like these guys are being stretched, so am I being stretched.
Mm-hmm.
But just like it's a good thing for them, it's a good thing for me because, the whole if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten thing. Well, I don't need to get what I've always gotten. I need to change, and so we all are growing.
Right. And are adaptations necessary for the employees that you have on the spectrum?
Well, I mean, when you say adaptations, we adapt to them in the sense of each one of that. We find out what their individual things are. And what we found is that some people learn things fast and some people learn things slow. And we work with them at their own pace.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody starts out with the same kind of trials, like window cleaning, pressure washing. We give them a little bit, see how they are.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of adapt accordingly. Now, and we also go around advocating for other people. We speak to different business groups about hiring people on the spectrum and taking the chance, because had we not had the unique qualifications that we have for what we raising Colin and me, but if we hadn't had those giftings already in place, there are organizations that can help people. But we usually try to talk to people about, you just have to test each person, and we accommodate by the person what we're doing and what we're not doing. And if we push them in an area that they're not comfortable, we pull it back.
Okay.
We kind of, and we don't say, oh no, you're written off. We just like, well, okay, they're not ready for that just yet.
Mm-hmm.
So there are accommodations in the sense of, if we get in, I'm trying to think of a good way to explain it. It's very organic. I know that sounds so ethereal, but each individual person learns differently.
Well,
and so, yeah.
Right. Josh put it this way. I asked him how did it feel working for you, and what's that experience like? And what he said was that you work very hard to understand him and who he is and what he's good at and what he needs help with. And then you don't stand over him and say, do it now. You say, these are the things that need to be done, and you send him on his way. And if there's something that comes up, you're receptive. He feels comfortable in telling you if anything is too much or if he feels overwhelmed. And what he feels is that you allow him to be himself every step of the way. So he doesn't feel like he has to take on undue stress and accomplish a regimen in a way that is foreign to who he is.
I would say that's a really good way I need to write that down, because that's a really good way of saying it, Josh. Because we do, I've not known how to express it, because we do just individually work with people, because the thing is as we work with them along the way, they're going to come up. What we always told our kids, because what the doctor said, we were neurodiverse. We have ADD, we have dyslexia, we have Tourette's. And so we have all these little special things that all of us, we learn differently. So I've never looked at learning as one pot thing. And I also worked in elementary schools with kids with disabilities back in the day as an assistant, because teaching every kid the same exact way doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of frustration. And so what we try to do with our kids is tell them, okay, figure out honestly, what are your shortcomings? Tell us what your shortcomings are so that we can help you not be cut off at the knee by the shortcoming. And then let's celebrate all of the strengths and work those as much as possible. But we're going to work on those bad ones, but they're not going to be the definer of who we are. The negatives are just part of the process. And you have to fail at something to tell where your limits are. And so failure is encouraged. I know that sounds crazy, but failure is encouraged because you cannot find the limits of your strengths until you fail at a thing or two. And so, but that doesn't mean the failure is defining. It's just a part of the process of, okay, well, you have that area that we need to support you in. But I like what Josh said better than what I'm saying.
Right. That goes along with what I've told Josh from the time that he could understand what I was saying, and that is that autism helps to describe you. It doesn't define you.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's exactly right. And go ahead.
It helps other people understand who he is and why he may not be exactly the same in his conversation or his understanding, but it does not define who he is as a person.
One of the things that we see is that anybody can swim in the deep end, but you don't take them down to the deep end and shove them in. You start out in the shallow end and you move progressively down, and then after a period of time, and you have no idea how long that period of time is going to be, but you look back, you get them to look back and say, look, you're treading water in 10-foot deep water way over your head. And when we started, you barely stuck your feet in the baby pool end. But you kind of have to take time out of the equation, and just whatever is necessary, and you do it.
Well, and that is the thing that makes the two of you different than about 99% of other employers out there, because it oftentimes it's not the individuals is not taken into consideration, and you flip that. You flip the normal approach just upside down on its head completely.
Well,
we're kind of upside down already.
If you spend any time with us at all, we've already flipped normal upside down on its head, okay?
But thank you for saying so. It sounds so much nicer when you say it.
I know, right? It's just like when one of the people at Triumph, which is a supported employment place that we work with, when she said, "Well, y'all are neurodiverse," I thought that was a really nice way of placing weird.
And we do celebrate our uniqueness. I like uniqueness.
Yeah, unique and neurodiversity.
Yes.
Yep. We do too. It's a good thing. It is a good thing. I want to go back to something here. There is no way that I can pronounce the whole title of the award that you won, but could you please talk a little bit about this Governor's Award that your company, that you and your company won this year?
Okay, well, I'm going to start, and I'm going to let Shawnee finish on this one. I was out pressure washing one morning, and you know how I was with one of my guys on the spectrum here in Birmingham. I was training him and working with him. And you know how you just have one of those mornings, one of those days where it's just a piss off. The whole day, the whole morning had just been frustrating. I was in just a terrible, terrible mood. And I get this text from the person who's over the supported employment at Triumph, and she said, "Mike, I nominated Mr. Cleans for the Birmingham Area Governor's Committee on Employment of People with Disabilities Small Business Employer of the Year, and you won.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. I said, that sounds really cool. Is it as cool as it sounds? And she says, oh yeah, it's a big deal. And I didn't even know it existed. It just kind of, but you talk about something out of the blue, and you're just having just a more, and there wasn't anything really bad. I was just in a bad mood mostly, and it just like completely turned it on its ear. But that's what that was. It's something completely out of the blue for us.
I don't know what you want me to say. He was. I mean, it was kind of validating that what you're saying is validating to me too, especially as a mom of a person on the spectrum, and you're trying to help him achieve success. You're saying it to me feels like the award did, because it's what we want to do, and we weren't doing it for an award, so it was pretty exciting to have other people recognize that we were different. What they said, what made us distinctly different, was that we were developing people on the spectrum to live and work independently, not as assisted workers, but as independent workers that could possibly have management positions, that we were different in our approach for what we were looking at. And so that was pretty awesome, because the thought that we could possibly do that has pushed us to do things that we would never have been comfortable with, like going out for me and speaking all the time in these different little, I love public speaking, but it's still a lot to get myself out going and doing it, And so I've been putting myself in some uncomfortable places because when I see those kids' eyes light up, and the one guy stands out, and his name is Brian. He's moved on to do something else now. But when he started, he wouldn't even look up at you. He would look down at the floor and kind of dart at you in the eye, and he wouldn't smile in a picture. He wouldn't do any of those things. And by the end, he would look up and smile with pride. And I believe people with disabilities, especially people on the spectrum, need to have a sense of purpose. They need to feel like they are valuable, just like everybody else. Just because they can't express it the same doesn't mean it's not there. But that's what that award was about. I hope we answered it right.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Mike, one time we were having a conversation, and something that you said to me stuck with me, and that is that one of the things that's different when by hiring somebody that's on the spectrum is that you can take the time and give them the time, because the majority of the people that work for you live with their families.
Yes.
Which means they don't have to have a full-time, ready-made job, to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage. That's it's something that allows them to grow into the position, and allows you to give them that time, because they don't have to start out full-time right away.
Yeah, it even enables us, kind of how, I'm going to back up a little, part of our business model is to go into new markets. We get enough clientele to get a foothold, hire somebody locally, and then train him or her to work, and then over the course of time, sell and build up more business to where this person goes from part-time to full-time independently to full-time and a trainer and supervisor of others, and then hopefully, if they're able to, and then hopefully a manager of an area with crews underneath them. Mm-hmm. But like you said, if the person was like, had his own place, had a kid, had to have $16 an hour and 40 hours a week guaranteed, or he couldn't do it, it wouldn't be possible.
It would limit how many people we could work with, seriously limit.
And this way, I mean, in most cases, and I mean, we're the same way. We have a child who's on the spectrum. Our situation is different because of our own business. But most families are excited to see their child have an opportunity. And honestly, most of us who have raised autistic people to where they are adults, we have to think long term. We can't think short term. It's just not possible. You think of IEPs and all that stuff, and step by step getting them there. Mm-hmm. So for someone like you or like ourselves, to as a parent of someone on the spectrum, if we say, hey, this may take 4 or 5 years, but over the span of 4 or 5 years, your child is going to move from part-time to full-time to supervisor level as long as they're able to, and the pay is going to be commensurate with that, to where in 4 or 5 years, they're going to be in a position where, should everybody want to, they could have their own place and not live at home anymore. And most of us can sit there and say, wow, 4 or 5 years is a whole lot better than never.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
And so that's so that's one of the things too, is that just like with you, when we talk with you guys about what we're doing with Josh, one thing we learned pretty early on is that incorporating the families in this is actually very, very important. Kind of working as a team.
Right. And I would, maybe it's a presumptuous, but I would think that the families are thrilled to be able to have this opportunity, because, all of us. When you say that it's not short term for the employment, you give it long term for them to grow into it, and one of the things that we've dealt with, that we've felt and just struggled with, is that, in the past, what's Josh going to do when we're not here?
Yeah. And
that's something that, for the folks that come through your company, you just help to build them up in such a way that you're actually offering them a full life, essentially. They have the opportunity just to, from the very beginning, where Josh is now just learning, but he feels good about himself. On days when he has to work, or when he knows that he's going to have to work, there's kind of like a little sparkle that's there, that's not necessarily there before he started working for you. So that purpose that he has, the ability to go out and make some money, learning something, and needing to be someplace because he has a job. Those things are.
And he's a desirable part of our company, and he is a vital part of it. He's an encouraging part of it to us as well.
So like, when are you going to start doing my marketing for me? That's what I want to know.
You make us. I know Mike is too, because I can see the grin on his face. You can't see it, but you probably can hear it in his voice. We're going to be leaving this conversation very uplifted from the things that you have said, because obviously that's our goal, and that's what we call. I do get really emotional, and I'm not much of a crier, but this is something that moves me to tears when I hear stuff like that with Josh, because that's the goal. Mm-hmm. The goal is to put that sparkle in their eye. The goal is to offer young autistic people the people on the spectrum, a chance at a future and a hope in their future, a belief in themselves, and something that will make them want to get up every morning and want to engage and be valuable parts of their community because they see they can. Yeah. And that's one of those things with Mr. Cleans that I don't think they're really as aware of it as we are, but they learn social skills for business conversations, but they're also limited in the number of people that they have to know, and know their moods and know their personalities. They're only usually they work with 3 to 5 people max, mm-hmm. but they meet a bunch of different people throughout that day. But it's short, it's brief, and it's not a long, sustained contact. And so they're learning skills that they're not even aware of yet, because they're learning how to do business as an adult person they just they're sort of learning it by osmosis, which is kind of unusual for people on the spectrum.
Yes.
Step by step, little baby step by, and they are surprising us, and we have high expectations, and they surprise us continuously how much more they actually can do. And we have had some negatives where people, kind of felt like that. I'm sure you've heard conversations where people, are you sure they should be going out and doing that? Or how comfortable are you sending that? And so that's another reason we go out and talk in the community, to let people know how dependable, reliable, and drama-free they are, because we want them not to be afraid of a person on the spectrum. If they meet somebody that's a little awkward in their conversation, doesn't mean they're not going to be a good worker, or they're not going to be somebody that our guys do a professional job.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing a substandard job.
Right.
They're doing an excellent job.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing, is they strive for excellence just like we strive for excellence, and it makes us really, really confident when we send them out, because they're giving their all, and that's about as much as anybody can expect as an employer.
And I know that I can only speak for Josh, but he feels very proud of the work that he's done. I asked him if it's hard. He said, yeah, sometimes it's pretty hard. And he said, but it feels good. And that's the part that you're helping to fill up. Like again, we can support Josh. We can, be a family that's around him every day, giving the support and the encouragement that we can, but we can only go so far. And with what you provide for him, it's just something that's that's just right. It seems like on all aspects of it, it's just clicking and it's working. And something that you didn't mention is that Josh has been on he's been on SSI. So for people that don't know that, SSI is a supplemental income for people that have a disability, and as long as that disability is present, they will be given a check each month in order to have for necessities. So
yes, right.
we have to prove where that goes. And one of the things that happened when we talked, you were talking with Josh and about this job, and he said he wanted to do it. Of course, he didn't slow down for a second. For me, I kind of got a little bit of a stomach ache because what I know is that once you start working, when you have SSI, you have to do things just right in order for things to, you have to report the amount of money that's made, and then it's taken away from that supplemental, that SSI check, and it's got to be done in a certain way. And as the mom, there was a little bit of panic because I wasn't sure, was he going to really like this? Was it going to work out? And what if he loses his SSI, but then the job doesn't work out? And then finally, I just got over myself and I said, what is the alternative? Really, what is the alternative? And that alternative would include him being held back, not because of his disability, but out of fear. And that just couldn't stand. So, we figured it out. And who knows if we're doing it right or not. The bottom line is, we'll know.
They'll tell you.
I'm sure they will. But
I'm not real familiar with SSI because we basically were right on the borderline of never qualifying, mm-hmm. And so I don't do good with government paperwork stuff anyway. Mm-hmm. But so that probably just kind of got missed on me. But so you were probably the first person to actually mention that to us, because we were trying to figure out why so many parents were resistant to letting their children try. And now, because of you, we understood the actual fear factor that there is there. And, obviously, while they're learning and testing out, like we told you, we can work it around to where it fits, where he could keep his SSI while he was deciding whether this was going to work for him or not. Because we don't have any problem with that. We would not want to crash and burn anybody's chances at keeping income and insurance and all that stuff while they figure out whether or not. And so we can work around those kind of things as well. And I'm glad that you shared that with us, because honestly, I never even considered it. I never realized that was really something that a lot of parents were probably in terror of going through, because what you told me and what I know of working with the government systems is that's a dance. It's a bad enough dance. I've never been able to successfully navigate it.
It's a crazy dance. You just got to hold on and hope for the best.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I never did successfully do that, so I would definitely not want to terrorize a parent in that situation, and we would do our very best to help them while they learn to figure out what they wanted to do. So thank you for bringing that up, because I was not sure what to say about that one.
Yes, absolutely. And it can be done. And if there's anybody, since we've been through this now, every state is different. And I will say that you're in Alabama. We live here in Florida. Yet Josh works for you, and some in Alabama and some in Florida, and yet. I'd be more than happy to anybody that has any questions about it, since we've been through that. If that is something that's keeping a parent from, moving forward with their child becoming your employee, I'd be more than happy to help with that.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, it can be a bit, a little bit different, I think, for each state, but for the most part, it's the same. I did have a question. So you ended up in Birmingham, and you had said that you had moved a lot as you would get these companies up and running, and then needed to go someplace else to get another one up and running. And how come you ended up in Birmingham, Alabama?
Well, we took a position with Joe's Crab Shack back in 1998 when they were opening up their location in Birmingham. Of course, Joe's Crab Shack no longer exists, and we lived in Winston-Salem, North Carolina at the time, and then on our way here, while they were building the restaurant, we stayed in Mobile for the summer of 1998. Really, really loved Mobile. We had no idea we would like it so much. We really loved it. In fact, for a little while when we came up to Birmingham, my wife and I were both wishing we could move back to Mobile, because it was just a very friendly, laid-back place, and we really liked it. But anyway, so that's what got us here. And then, like I said, they were terrorists.
Well, and up until March of 2018, we also lived half the time in Destin, Florida. So we were in both locations. We were working back and forth. And that was before we started doing this, that we had moved down there. And that's when we worked with Taylor. And then a couple of other companies like Winn-Dixie and Enterprise Rent-A-Car and H&R Blocks found out what we were doing, and they asked us, would we like to take the opportunity a little bit further out? Mm-hmm. And so we jumped on that, and we started, and now we do stuff in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, all along the coast, and Mississippi, the North Mississippi and Louisiana, and we're trying to do the same things that we're doing with Josh in those areas. Right now, we're, we gave up our place. This is how serious we are about these guys, okay? we gave up our place in Destin, and we have this little thing we call the mobile office, which is actually going to be Collins in the long run because it's really too small for me and Mike.
It's a 26-foot travel trailer.
It's an itty-bitty one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not as itty-bitty as they come, but it's as itty-bitty as a 6'2" man and a fluffy woman can fit into, okay?
Got it.
I get stuck on the knobs going through sometimes, but that's what we take, to work with these guys in these different locations now. So I really believe in what I'm doing because I gave up my place, my peace spot on the beach.
Uh-huh.
But I really believe in what I'm doing. But every now and then I groan over my loss of space at the beach because I do miss it. But right now I think this is more important, and it's more what I want to do with the rest of my life too. And so maybe the other will come back in time. But we were living literally half our time in Florida and half our time in Alabama.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So, but when these guys started catching fire and started inspiring us, we decided that maybe it was time to change things a little bit and reinvest money in a different way.
So your company started in 1999, and when did you start hiring people from the autism spectrum?
3 years ago now.
2015.
Okay. And it sounds like it's just been magnificent.
Well, when we did that, we worked mostly in Birmingham and some in Montgomery and in the Panhandle of Florida, but it was very light. And now we work all the way from Atlanta, Memphis, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and the Panhandle of Florida a little bit more, and the coast down there. And so, yeah. Things have changed because of I'm telling you, the guys changed everything.
Wow. And
so it's not, we're not doing this. They were inspirational. They have shifted our focus and they've changed the shape of the company. And I think it was the most positive thing that I could ever imagine could have happened.
We're in our 50s and we feel like, how the Autism Society or whatever, but their symbol is the puzzle piece, and we feel like hiring these guys has been the puzzle piece that when we put it into our lives, it made all of the aspects of who we are, the things we've been through, the training and education we've had, our desires, our dreams, our professional aspirations, all of these things, it sucked it all into a cohesive whole that made sense. And so much so it actually is kind of frightening. I mean, how when you see something you really, really want and you didn't know how much you really, really wanted it, and you see it and you can actually conceptualize it in your mind how it can come together, and you start hyperventilating practically.
Yes. Well, there are a whole bunch of families out here grateful that you took that leap of faith and followed that dream and that vision that you had, because you're definitely changing so many lives. And it is just I'm just grateful for you personally. But I'm so grateful for what you have opened up and what you're teaching people along the way too. How to be a business owner that embraces these what other people may call challenges. You don't look at it that way, and it's just a wonderful thing.
Well, for us, it was always a story of pick your challenge, and so for us, looking at everything top to bottom, that's why Shawnee calls this a win-win-win. This isn't a situation where, I'm being charitable and I'm wonderful, or a situation where we're exploiting people. It's a situation where everybody's winning, and if everybody else doesn't win, Shawnee and I don't win. And and with the guys, they see that if they don't help Shawnee and me win, and if they don't help our clients be, have their best appearance, they don't win. Mm-hmm. And everybody is learning that this is a win, win, win. If everybody doesn't walk away happy, nobody's happy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it's working.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Sometimes daunting.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah, I imagine so. But I have one last question for you. I appreciate you so much. You've hung out here with me for a while, and I appreciate your time. One last thing that I was wondering about: do the clients know that the folks do they know the history of your company when you gain new clients, or is that something that doesn't need to be said? So for example, when you take on a new client, are they aware that the folks that are going to come and pressure wash their buildings or clean their windows, do they know that these guys are so awesome?
We have, and that's something we wrestled with for a while. One of our natural desires, I think, was to protect our employees, because I think if somebody sees an autistic person's behavior, they may judge them incorrectly if they don't know what they're looking at, and might even be tempted to treat them poorly. And so we were always very protective of that, but at the same time, we didn't want to sit there and we didn't want to set up a quote-unquote special needs situation or anything like that. But as we kind of moved this from beta testing to really embracing it, we just really share it as a part of who we are, and we share, again, like what you're talking about, all the benefits of it, and we use it as a part of who we are. We give them certain things, so we want our clients to feel comfortable working with our people coming out there. And so we do explain in broad strokes about what they're like, and try to help everybody understand.
And we mostly talk about it as autism in the middle, was what we kind of call it, because you have the extremes of these are the super duper successful people that are double PhDs like Tipple Grandin, or people that create software stuff, or you have the ones that are super special needs. And when we talk to people, we'll say, think about the majority of the population. The majority of the population fits in a little bubble that's neither super bright or super,
not bright.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so our guys, we tell them, just think of an awkward, sometimes we'll tell them this, not always, but sometimes we'll say, think awkward pocket protector Greek who may or may not say things the same way you would. Mm-hmm. And they usually relax at that point. If there's any kind of, but most of the time we've worked with them so long that people can't believe they're really on the spectrum when they see them in and out, because they're dealing in a way that's professional. Right. And mm-hmm. we are teaching them professional skills, and so they come across neurotypical. A lot of our clients don't believe us.
Yeah, right.
So yeah. I think that the thing is, we want them, if they need to know, like sometimes they do things that are awkward. Well, we're right there to step in and fill in that gap and explain. But mostly, we tell some of these larger companies like Enterprise Rent-A-Car, they were really on board with helping and wanting to work with us. And some of the Taco Bells and things like that we work with, and the Sonic. Well, I don't know. Did we talk to the Sonic people about it?
Yeah.
But they're usually pretty excited about the prospect of giving people a chance. And they're usually shocked that our guys are on the spectrum. I think it's because people have a misconception of Hollywood-style autism, because there's a big, wide range of what it looks like. And most of the time, they're relatively functional. They just have quirks.
Yeah, right, yes, and you know what? I think that at one point, I had a doctor here on the podcast, and I think that she said that if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there's, the differences, just as anybody in our society has their own unique differences. So, yep, I understand exactly what you're saying. Is there?
Well, it's like Mac and PC, two different operating systems.
Yeah, right, yes. I'm laughing because I find them both difficult. Yes. So before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I think we've given you an earful. We appreciate you letting us talk for as long as you did. I mean, I don't know. I'm just real appreciative of what you've had to say, giving us a chance to talk.
Yeah, I agree with what he said. I think I'm very uplifted by the things that you said. Good. Because it makes me feel like I'm actually getting to the goals that we thought might be possible, and it's kind of fun to see it materialize in somebody's life.
And I think that's the funnest part of all of this. There hasn't been, and your family has owned its own business, and there's no part of having your own business that isn't hard. Mm. And so we're used to hard. Mm-hmm. And we're used to hard and inglorious, yes. Unsung, not really very neat. Right. And so when we get the nice things like that award or the nice things you said to us just a little while ago, it's like, wow, I don't really feel like I'm doing anything all that great that I wasn't doing before in the sense of the hard part, because it's just always hard.
Right.
But hard with purpose is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah. It does feel pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's kind of been a surprise.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Good for you. I'm so happy for both of you, for all of the guys that work for you, and it's just a combination that's this vision has just taken hold, and it's really it's like, as you say, changing lives. So yeah, good for you. If somebody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Well, we do. We have a web page that is in the process of being updated, so it's a little outdated, but it's at www. I think I said 3 W's. Mr. Cleans, and that's no space. MrKleanze.com. We're also on Facebook. We are on Instagram and Twitter, but we're not really. On Instagram and Twitter are slow, but we post a lot of pictures of our guys doing the work on Facebook. And that's just MrKleanze, at Facebook.com, I think is how it goes.
Okay.
And our phone number, toll free, is 855-CLEANS. That's 855-KLEANZE.
And we're hoping that, I guess this is one of the things that you said, what will we say? We're trying to we seek out, we recognize, and we develop career prospects for individuals on the ASD spectrum. And we cultivate, hopefully, the skills necessary for them to manage, to have a life and to lead and aspire to other things. And we really do believe that we can unleash their capacity for independence. We do believe that it's possible. Not that we are, but that we can help them unleash their potential
mm-hmm. Yes.
for independence.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to see it. And Collins always said that he was defying the odds and breaking the boundaries of autism. That's what he always said. When he was a little kid, he would say, "I'm defying autism." And so I think that we need to celebrate that difference.
Yes.
Because it's just a different way of seeing the world. It's not a negative or a less. Just a difference.
Right. But, I agree.
And do we need to tell you anything else? I think we've talked you to death.
Well, I've enjoyed every minute of it. I have. Thank you very much. I think that we can just leave it there with Colin's words. I think it's perfectly said. And thank you so much, Mike and Shawnee. And Mr. Cleans is alive and well and prospering and taking a whole bunch of wonderful folks with it. So thank you very, very much for spending time with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody out there, thank you so much for listening to Josh Has Autism today. And we are so grateful for you as always. Love you. Bye.